Welcome to Install from Heap, Episode 4, a Netrunner podcast from Rattlebox Games about jank, deck building, and cyberpunk nonsense. I'm Brendan Riley. I grew up in Minnesota, a northern state in the U.S. where it begins snowing in early November and doesn't really stop until March. That's not quite true, but December there is a wondrous place full of cold weather and warm people. Growing up there helped me see the logic in festivals of lights being held around the winter solstice. It's a long, cold winter, and you need the cheer of lights and family to get through it. Here in Illinois, I love walking home, turning the corner, and seeing 2 blocks away the brilliant light of my house. So I love the holidays. I love putting up lights and decorating our house and giving gifts to my friends and family. And I love Christmas films. I like the classics. I like new ones. I even enjoy Christmas specials for favorite television shows, and don't tell my wife, but some of those stupid holiday movies on the Hallmark Channel. So since this is the last episode of Install from Heap to appear before Christmas, I thought I'd give it a bit of holiday cheer. It's a Weylandful Life. I did a little searching around Netrunner database to see what Christmas-themed decks people had come up with and published in the past. User Hipster Wannabe published a Janky replicating perfection deck that's called Gifts Under the Tree, presumably because Janky's icon is a tree. And they seem to have included some wintry-themed ice, but otherwise I don't really feel the theme very strongly there. They also published Box of Puppies for Christmas, which has an equally light touch on the Shaper Runner side, using mostly dog-related ice. User Siofmars created a Reina Roja deck, DDoS the Halls, that doesn't feel particularly Christmassy, but includes an amusing parody tune in the notes. My favorite, A Weyland Christmas Carol, is by user Cwoac, C-W-O-A-C. The notes to this deck include a brief version of Dickens' classic tale, written using Netrunner cards. All of these decks will be linked from the show notes appearing at rattleboxgames.com, so you can look at them for yourself. So for my take on a holiday Netrunner tale, I've constructed a corp deck inspired by the film It's a Wonderful Life. I'm calling the deck It's a Weylandful Life. You get it? I can't imagine anyone winning with this deck, but I think the theme is gangbusters. In an Android version of the Jimmy Stewart classic, Weyland stands in for Mr. Potter, taking over Bedford Falls and transforming it into a shallow, dark place full of sad people, grinding away under the corporate boot of an oppressive regime that controls everything.
Now, you take this loan here to Ernie Bishop, that fellow that sits around all day on his brains in his taxi, I happen to know the bank turned down this loan, but he comes here, and we're building him a house worth $5,000. What does that get us? A discontented, lazy rabble instead of a thrifty working class.
Here, you're all businessmen here. Don't it make them better citizens? Doesn't it make them better customers? Do you know how long it takes a working man to save $5,000? Just remember this, Mr. Potter, that this rabble you're talking about, they do most of the working and paying and living and dying in this community. Well, is it too much to have them work and pay and live and die in a couple of decent rooms and a bath?
Sentimental hogwash.
Here are some key elements in my deck. For an ID, I used Grindle Refinery, which smacks of the corporate arrogance of Potterville. I added government takeover, geothermal fracking, and hostile takeover to help develop the idea of a place where individual needs are ignored in the favor of credits, credits, credits. Of course, Potter doesn't want the rabble getting too roused, so I included Global Food Initiative and Veterans Program as a way of softening the terrible, terrible capitalism at work in the other agendas. Mr. Potter himself shows up as Zealous Judge. More on that later. As do aggressive negotiation, financial collapse, scarcity of resources, and witness tampering. The key elements of non-agenda play are about starving the people without letting them get too upset. This keeps bad publicity under control a little bit. Though this deck is backwards as Potterville, I built a winning strategy around Potter's control of the media. With exchange of information and hard-hitting news, Potter can turn what seemed like a Bailey victory into an excruciating defeat. And let's face it, you know that Potter had a goon squad somewhere, so the usual meat damage cards like Scorched Earth, Boom, and Punitive Counterstrike represent Potter's bulldozers and or the corrupt cops on his payroll. Of course, like the film, some swift moves by the runner can undo everything Potter is working for. Those high-point agendas, like government takeover, could mean the runner wins with as few as 2 agendas stolen. It's as if all the townspeople showed up to give the runner money or something. This isn't a great deck. It definitely isn't the best deck. In fact, it's probably a pretty crummy one. But I think it fits the theme well, and with the right janky combo in place, it could lead to a win, accompanied by the cackling glee of Judge Potter. Executive Boot Camp. Sometimes when I lose, I'm tempted to tell my opponent off, especially if they did something very clever and I made, well, a dumb mistake. That happens a lot. We've all done it. When that happens, especially if they win because of that mistake, you kind of want to get mad at them.
And I want to look them straight in the eye, and I want to tell them what a cheap, lying, no-good, rotten, four-flushing, low-life, snake-licking, dirt-eating, inbred, overstuffed, ignorant, blood-sucking, dog-kissing, brainless, hopeless, heartless, bug-eyed, stiff-legged, spotty-lipped, worm-headed sack of monkey shit he is!
But my advice this week, the week of the holidays, is to talk about your mistakes with your opponent. I do this often on gintechie.net, but I also do it sometimes when I play in person. Here are some reasons to talk about your mistakes. Number 1, repetition helps you remember. When you process a bit of information in more than one way, say by thinking about it and by verbalizing it, you learn it better. I do both of these and then make a log of play mistakes as well. Number 2, it establishes rapport with your opponent. This makes the game more fun. Remember, Netrunner's supposed to be fun. 3, it gives your opponent an opening to make suggestions. When you comment on your own mistakes, your opponent may contribute to the conversation. This can be very helpful. For example, when I was playing a game a couple weeks ago, I noticed play mistakes as I went, and I noted them in the chat. At the end, my opponent pointed out another mistake that I had made that I wasn't aware of. I had spent real money instead of recurring credits to install a program. That'll help me next time I play. Number 4, perhaps it opens a channel of empathy between you and your opponent that you can use to your advantage later. I propose this like I'm some sort of cutthroat Netrunner player. We all know I'm a pushover. This might be countered, I'll admit, by the loss of advantage you create by telling your opponent what you're thinking. Overall, though, talking about mistakes with opponents has been very productive for me, and I recommend you give it a try. Just avoid pointing out their mistakes until the conversation seems like it's a good point to do so, especially if you're winning. Flavor of the Week, Zealous Judge. And now I continue my homage to the stimhack.com column running on italics by taking a moment to look at one card I talked about today in the context of its flavor and theme. This week, Zealous Judge. Zealous Judge is a Weyland asset character from the Fear the Masses data pack, the last of the Mumbad cycle. It costs 2 to res and 2 to trash, and reads, Zealous Judge can only be resed if the runner is tagged. Spend 1 click and 1 credit to give the runner 1 tag. There is no flavor text. The image is a suave-looking older gentleman with gray hair, and he has a ridiculous pompadour and sideburns that blend into a mustache. He's surrounded by bright lights, maybe video screens, and is holding a microphone while he points at the reader, or more accurately, at the reader's feet. I will first say that for a long time I assumed this was a legal judge, someone in charge of a court. But given the microphone and the weird hair, I suspect he's actually a talent judge on a singing show.
Do you know what you sounded like, honestly? Someone stepping on 2 cats for like a minute. That's the only way I could describe it. You were completely out of tune. It was like horrific.
It's not just that you have a bad voice. I honestly can say I've never heard anything like that in my life. I mean, you were singing notes which have never been invented.
Perhaps in the future, singing shows and courtrooms are one and the same. The art clearly points to a television type of judge, but the card ability sounds like a legal judge. If Weyland's lawyers went in front of a court judge with information about a runner, something they can do once the runner's tagged, then the judge can begin issuing warrants and other awkwardness that tags the runner more thoroughly. But a talent show judge doesn't have that same power, nor the same clout. I don't know how they would make a runner more tagged. I suppose if there were a TMZ-style show where the runners are rated and judged, a zealous judge might keep calling attention to the runner even after they've shied away from the spotlight. This could perhaps mean there's paparazzi following them and they get more tagged, similar to the paparazzi card. But that's reading a lot into this. It sounds more like the zealous judge is just making a contestant on the show more popular, but that doesn't really explain why they can only be rezzed when the runner's tagged, or how they got on the show to begin with if they're trying to hide. I suppose the phrase zealous judge is usually applied to legal justices, as in this judge who sentences people to really strict sentences for crimes that don't merit it. That would be a zealous judge. So that kind of judge seems to fit the card, but the art seems like the TV judge. I think some flavor text would really have helped clarify what's going on in the card. It's a good card, one that's fun to use, so I'm going to give it a B. Well, that wraps up Install from Heap Episode 4. If you have suggestions for future topics or comments on the show, I would love to hear them. You can send email to brendan@rattleboxgames or tweet to rattleboxgames. You can visit our website, rattleboxgames.com, to subscribe to our newsletter, or follow the link to our forums on BoardGameGeek.com, where my username is Wombat929. I'd always enjoy losing a game of Netrunner to you on jinteki.net, where my username is also Wombat929. See you next time, but until then, remember, when all your best cards end up in the trash, you can always install from Heap. Today's media clips were from It's a Wonderful Life, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and American Idol.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.